Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Ugh. That's a great way to start the show.
I just looked over. There's a window next to me right now. I looked over and saw my belly.
Oh, I thought
Yeah, you thought I was talking about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
you were gonna make a comment about Mahomes. Yeah,
no.
because you know
we'll get to that later.
Mahomes is a Super Bowl champion. Let that sink in.
I kind of want to throw up right now. Can I find a trash can somewhere? I'm probably the only man in society that hates Mahomes. But when you all join the bandwagon in 5 years after he's won 3 Super Bowls, people will be like, "Oh my God, this is so annoying. I want change again." Losers. Class A idiots. Hate greatness before it happens.
So you can appreciate it after.
So you can appreciate it after. It is Tuesday, February 4th. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon right across from me as always. We got a lot to get to today. News, our final quick reaction segment until the 2020 season kicks into high gear. We're going to give you some Super Bowl reactions, and then we'll continue our series in the final 2 episodes about consistency at the tight end position now. So before we get into the news, check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the FFChamps on Twitter, at the Fantasy Champions on Instagram. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. I feel like no one likes us on Facebook, so why even bother with that page anymore? Like us on Facebook. Does anybody use Facebook?
Listen, I don't think
There's anybody out there on Facebook.
I think people around my age
When was the last time?
have Facebook, right? They have it. I don't know when was the last time they logged into it.
You use it for like messaging. And
I use it because we have group chats with it.
Yep.
If we didn't, I don't think I would ever use Facebook.
Yeah. See, I told you.
Because Facebook is just. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm not gonna go.
You know, there's so many old people in the world that use Facebook.
Well, I was kind of
They
gonna.
always jump on last. Like, there's gonna be like for some like I.
Oh
believe this
yeah,
with all
Snapchat.
of my heart. Snapchat. Well, that's already happening. But Twitter is going to end up where all the old people are, and they'll go to a new thing.
Yep.
As soon as old people figure out about certain social media trends, all the young people just mass exited away from it.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yep. So you can like us or subscribe wherever you listen. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. Click the bell on YouTube for notifications. Leave a review. Share this podcast with your friends. Let's get to the news first. Rick is very adamant about finishing the news in a short.
Well, listen,
He's
just
like,
trying to help you.
he wants to go watch hockey, which is what people do in the off season.
Okay, well, you
is what Rick does in the off.
you wanted to.
I want to go watch basketball. And
Yeah, exactly. So
So let's start off with the first bit of news. Dak Prescott. I think there's multiple pieces of Dak Prescott news in here. No, there isn't. Never mind. I lied. But Dak Prescott told NFL Network he has confidence that the Cowboys will extend him. There is also news that the Cowboys intend on putting the franchise tag on him, so he might not play for a little while.
oh boy.
Until he signed a contract. In a joint statement, the Panthers and Greg Olsen announced they have mutually agreed to part ways. He's visiting the Bills, Redskins, and Seahawks with other teams interested. He was on the
like he's
Super
so
Bowl
wise,
pregame show, and they with Gronk,
Yeah.
and they mentioned something about the Patriots, and he's like, all they got to do is call. I don't think they're going to call.
Probably not.
Speaking Thursday, Sammy Watkins said he is unsure if he will play next season.
Interesting.
Also speaking Thursday, Allen Robinson said he wants to be in Chicago for the long term. I don't know.
That's
why.
unfortunate.
That's sad, dude. Why would you want to do that? Also speaking Thursday, so everyone was talking Thursday for some reason. They just all got around their microphones and started talking. Sean Payton said it would be unrealistic for the Saints to keep all 3, Drew Brees, Teddy Bridgewater, and Taysom Hill.
Wow, really? That's a shock.
I think it's going to be Taysom.
I think that's a bad decision.
A bad decision, yeah, I would agree. Sean Payton also said he was emphatic that the team wants impending free agent Drew Brees back for 2020. Drew Brees has said he doesn't want to play for any other team besides the Saints. Tom Brady's out here being a Class A idiot, running around the league trying to say, I'm going to change teams, and Drew Brees is like, I'm loyal to the Saints forever. Wish we had that type of loyalty here in New England.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
Considering in most sports, the NBA, most players don't really stay for one team longer than like 5 years now.
No, not unless you draft them.
So
They're forced to stay with you for 8.
Yeah. I think Brady playing 20 is pretty loyal.
Yeah, you're right. Ryan Fitzpatrick confirmed he'll be back with the Dolphins in 2020.
It's just either a second string or a third string, probably.
We'll see. This was actually a relatively interesting piece of news. Tua's agent, because he has one now, hopes he doesn't have to start as a rookie.
That is interesting.
Do you think his agent thinks he's going to get drafted outside the top 15?
If he's saying something like that, then maybe he has a fear of him dropping down.
Yeah.
So like this is kind of like a just in case if he drops down sort of thing, and then he can come back on the comments later and be like, well, if he doesn't drop down,
yeah,
and kind of like backtrack on it.
We're gonna do a series in April, talking about rookies and previewing the NFL draft and such, and we will talk about Tua and potential landing spots for Tua. But if Tua goes to the New England Patriots, I will be the most incessant moron on the following.
Your pants
podcasts.
are off.
My pants would be off. I'd be probably a bigger fan of Tua than I am of Brady.
You would be okay.
I'm just kidding.
You would be butt naked recording every podcast.
Yes, I would be. Yes, you know that. Impending free agent. You're gonna love this. Frank Gore is hopeful of playing another season.
All right. Have a good day, Morgan.
Do you know what
do you
know where he wants to go? Do you know where he wants to go?
Is it Buffalo?
Miami. Which they
don't
have a running back
until they draft one,
and then he gets screwed.
My gosh.
Here we go again.
Who's the running back out of Ohio State?
Oh my, Swift?
Yeah.
No.
What if
is it Swift or
is Swift?
I can't remember.
Well, whatever.
You gotta let me prepare for this stuff before.
Well, the top running back in the class.
Yeah.
Gets drafted by Miami, and then Frank Gore comes.
Can you kill me? Ian Rappaport reports the Raiders were interested in impending free agent Robbie Anderson before October's trade deadline. So be anticipatory that the Raiders are going to try to sign Robbie Anderson, which I don't think it's a horrible fit.
No, it's not, but they're still needing like 2 other receivers.
Yeah.
Because Robbie Anderson's at best like a third receiver.
I don't think we're going to escape a news segment without talking about Antonio Brown for eternity. But he apologized to the NFL in an interview with ESPN's Josina Anderson. Did you see the interview?
Hasn't he apologized before?
He's
like a month ago.
He's apologized to his respective teams, but he hasn't. He's been very adamant that the NFL is like
out to get him.
So this is he went. Usually it's through tweets or Instagram or whatever. But
I saw the interview, but I didn't
from ESPN.
watch it. I didn't bother.
He went in front of like Josina Anderson asked him like, are you regretful of all that? And he said yes. So I think his agent leaving him is probably a sign that he should probably clean up his act a little bit. And he's also taking mental health stuff forced by the state of wherever he committed a crime. So we'll have to see what happens with Antonio Brown. If he continues on the right path, though, and doing stuff like this, not that I believe Antonio Brown.
He's going to fight Logan Paul. Like, that's like borderline confirmed. It's not a joke anymore.
No, I mean, in real life, if he continues on this path of apologizing and being like the OG Antonio Brown like he was with Pittsburgh, I think he gets a job. But it's just a matter of how long this lasts, because what we've seen over the last year and a half is it don't last.
I'm not going to believe it till I see it.
Yeah. Ian Rappaport reports the Browns want to move forward with Odell Beckham. So now we got Odell Beckham saying he wants to move forward with the Browns, and the Browns saying they want to move forward with Odell Beckham. Mutually agreeing, Odell will not be traded this offseason, folks. Last time I said that he got traded. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports the Raiders will pursue Tom Brady if the Patriots don't re-sign him. So now the Raiders
Chargers,
the Chargers,
Dolphins,
and
right?
the Dolphins are all on the list for Tom
Which
Brady
is what
at
we
this point.
expected.
Which is what you would expect. Now, I don't want to go through point by point discussing these things, but why not? He's not going to Miami. Miami blows. He's probably not going to the Raiders. The Raiders were close, but does Tom Brady make what Tom Brady provides? Is that any different than Derek Carr?
No, I don't think if Brady goes to the Raiders.
And I'm not saying that Tom Brady is worse than Derek Carr.
No, I get what you're saying. He's not at this point in his
statistically,
career.
Yeah, he's not going to do what he did back in the day.
Yeah, I think if he goes to the Raiders, they're at best like a wild card team.
Maybe a little bit more.
They're probably.
But they're in the division with the Chiefs.
That's why I said. At
Do you
best.
think that also comes into consideration for him? Like, I had to
Maybe.
play Mahomes twice. What the frick is wrong with this?
Miami? Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but it is Miami, and it's like a spectacle. So there's that. I don't think it's gonna happen. I'd put them third too. But
Take my towns to South Beach.
yeah, exactly. But then who's the last team?
Chargers.
Which I think is probably the most realistic if he does leave. But
yeah. But he's that outside of that. I don't think there's any more teams there.
People have said Tennessee, because Tannehill and Mariota are both free agents.
Right.
But I think they're gonna re-up Tannehill.
Yeah.
If they don't,
I'm increasingly believing that Tom Brady has no other option to come back to New England. Like, why would you do that? It's so stupid at this point. Like, back in the day, like when the 49ers transitioned from Montana to Steve Young, they had Steve Young in the back round.
yeah.
So it was like, okay, see you later. And then he was forced to sign with the Chiefs. I think if the 49ers, if Joe Montana said, oh, I'll come back and play one more season with you guys and then retire, they would probably bring him back.
Yeah, they probably would have, yeah.
But I think, you know what I mean? I think for the Patriots, they're very like,
think
we'll bring you back. But it's up to Brady to decide whether or not he wants to lose on another team for.
So
lose with the Patriots?
did you put the $30 million thing
Yes.
in the notes?
Yeah, that was the next thing.
All right.
The Patriots are willing to pay Tom Brady in excess of $30 million to keep him in New England.
So
$30 million a year, by the way.
would you be
Is
comfortable?
that even a thing? Can you give somebody $30 million?
Oh, yeah.
a year?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Would you be comfortable giving
It's like
Tom Brady $30 million at 2
quarter.
years?
A year? $30 million a year?
$30 million a year for
I
2
would
years,
do
so 60 mil.
He says so. Brady says that he doesn't want 30 mil. Like he's not asking for 30
Didn't
million.
Schefter report that though?
Schefter reported Ian Rappaport and Schefter kind of jointly reported, not together, but like they at the same time reported that the Patriots are willing to pay him 30 million. And then Schefter later came on and clarified because everyone was like, "Oh my God, Brady's asking for 30 mil." They said Brady's not asking for 30 million. He's asking for more assets. He does want to be paid more than he's been in the past, so he's not going to take a home team discount. But he doesn't care to have 30 million. It doesn't really matter to him. He just wants more assets,
Okay.
which is very Tom Brady.
But would you give Tom Brady, if you're the Patriots, $60 million for 2 years, so $30 million a year?
No. I would.
So you would let him walk at that point?
I would give him like $45 million and backload the contract to $30 million in like the next year. So 50 in the first and then 30 the second.
And cut him.
yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, like honest to God though, like seriously, that's what I would do. So then he thinks he's getting 30
Or
million.
front load it.
You can't
But
put
against the cap, it only
you
counts.
can't put a no cut clause in a contract.
Right.
So that's not a thing. But anyway. So we'll see what happens with the Tom Brady front. Adam Schefter reports the NFLPA will conditionally vote for or against a 17-game regular season soon, which would probably start next year, which means that we get one extra fantasy week, guys. One extra fantasy week.
Oh, boy.
Let's get it. I'm so pissed off. Like most all leagues do 13 weeks and then 3 weeks of postseason. So now we can round it up a little bit and have 14 regular season weeks and 3.
Yes.
We'll see what happens with that. They said they would remove a preseason game, so they would start a week earlier.
Which is perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, remove a preseason game, and then I don't think there would be. I think the original proposal was to have a limit on games played, so you can only play 16 if there was a 17-game season.
Okay.
But it doesn't really matter if you're playing in 17 games anyway.
So they would still play 16 games, but it would be 18 weeks?
Yes.
So teams would have 2 bye weeks?
So it's 18 weeks. You have 1 bye week, 17 games.
Oh, so
It's the same thing.
I said
just
16
one
games
extra
and you
week.
said yes.
No.
So it's
What
17
I'm saying
games.
is there would be a rule where
One
you
bye
could
week.
only play 16 weeks. Like a player could only play 16 weeks. So your quarterback could only play 16 games, and then you'd have to figure out what to do with the other game.
So they're gonna have one regular
That's
season
not
game.
no. That was just the original proposal,
Oh,
which I thought would be extremely stupid.
which is
Yes.
You have to have Brian Hoyer start at quarterback for 1 week.
And then Mike Garofalo reported that George Kittle expect to blow the lid off the tight end market in contract negotiations. So frick you, George Kittle. The Indianapolis Star, Jim Iola, I don't even know how to say your name, reports that the Colts are working on an extension for contract year running back Marlon Mack. So we'll have to see and watch that situation. Do you think Marlon Mack holds out if he doesn't get a contract? I don't think he can. But
no, probably not.
we've seen weirder things happen. I'm looking for the running backs that are looking for the big contracts that hold out because we've had one the last 3 years. So anyway, let's get into quick reactions. We're going to discuss Super Bowl 54, and then we're going to talk about the top 12 tight ends this week. So we'll start with 1 through 6 on this episode and then go through 7 through 12 on the next episode. So let's just start with quick reactions. Super Bowl 54 was Sunday. The Kansas City Chiefs won. They were trailing all of 3.5 quarters. And then I don't know
Patrick Mahomes showed up.
I don't know if it was Mahomes showing up or Kansas City just completely collapsing all the way around. Like I
San
didn't
Fran collapsing.
like when I've watched teams come back in the Super Bowl, I've been like when Brady came back 28-3. There was a lot of defensive plays that happened in that game, but it looked very much like, okay, this one man is willing his whole team to victory because he wants to win the Super Bowl that bad. And I've seen other teams come back where they just will their team to victory. It didn't look like to me Mahomes was willing, trying to get his team to win a championship.
Well, he was.
He did do well. I just feel like the defense was just they had
The Niners did choke, is what you're saying.
Yes.
They did choke.
It obviously takes Mahomes to do well.
Mahomes played fantastic though when he had to.
In that, yeah, right.
He made all
agree.
the throws.
But they were 1 third and long away.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And then the Tyreek Hill connection on the Richard Sherman blown coverage. If they did not convert that, they would have had to punt. And I guarantee you that Kyle Shanahan would have given the ball to Raheem Mostert or Tevin Coleman 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
That game would have been over. It was that one play that blew the lid off the game. It's always to Tyreek Hill. Drives me crazy. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. They deserve it.
Oh, there you
but
go.
I it was annoying though because I came into this game and I had this sick feeling in my stomach of Kyle Shanahan just being like, didn't he blow the He didn't single-handedly blow the Super Bowl.
But
That was a joint effort.
He was a part of it.
But there was some really bad play calls in that game
Yeah.
that he lost as offensive coordinator with the Falcons. And I'm not really sure if he made any – the only poor decision that I'll say that Kyle Shanahan made in this Super Bowl was – because they –
End of the first half.
It was – yes, that was the first one. The end of the first half where he had 1 minute and 30 seconds. He didn't call a timeout, didn't try to drive down the field. He got too conservative. You're playing the Chiefs. You're playing the highest-powered offense in the NFL. You have to move the ball. Give Jimmy Garoppolo the ball. I don't care if he throws an interception. Move the ball down the field.
Yes.
I could give a
Right.
That's your last game of the season. Don't play conservative. And then the other thing I would say is late in the game they had they got the ball with 8 minutes to go or 8-9 minutes to go, and they decided to give Jimmy Garoppolo the ball to throw. And they didn't run it. They ran it once on first down, and then they started just trying to toss it around with Jimmy G. And I'm like, why not just run the ball? You won your games in the past running the football, and you decide to throw it. So, like I said, I put this entirely on Shanahan. He just kind of went away from what they were doing. Is that because you're a
Jimmy G?
I love Jimmy Garoppolo. And, I was very sad because Jimmy G is our MVP. All he had to do, he had many opportunities, and he blew it twice.
If he throws that touchdown at the end to Sanders, that deep ball, and connects on it, and then
Mahomes scores. I
agree. I agree. I think the Chiefs still win.
It would have been too fast.
The Chiefs still win, but so let's say for some odd reason, Richard Sherman jumps in front of a pass, picks it off, and that's the game.
Yeah,
and that ends up being the game-winning play, the Garoppolo touchdown. He could have won MVP. That was the difference.
Oh,
right
yeah.
He would have been MVP.
You know what the interesting thing is, too, is that it looked like on that play, all Emmanuel Sanders needed was one more step.
I know.
And
he did overthrow him, though.
He kind of overthrew him a little bit.
He overthrew him.
I also looked at it, I'm like, most receivers that aren't his age in the NFL who haven't gone
Debo
through an
probably
injury-
catches.
Yeah, like somebody else is gonna catch that. And like I looked at it and I'm like, oh, because it kind of looked like, you know how like young receivers get distracted and then they run down the field and they don't realize that they could actually catch the ball.
And they
like
stop.
N'Keal Harry did it so much this year and they stopped. It looked like Emmanuel Sanders slowed down because he thought he wasn't gonna get it, and then it was a lot closer than he thought it was gonna be. So he dove. It just looked like he could have added that. If he pushed himself just one more step, he could have reached
Did he
the ball
dive
and
for
catch.
it?
Yeah, he like leaped for it and he almost caught it. But anyway, yeah, because then you remember that he was on the ground and his helmet was in the ground and he rolled over and he went. He was like that close. So it was an awful Super Bowl. I'll say not as bad as last year, but it was a pretty bad Super Bowl up until the last 7 minutes.
Yeah,
It was just
a lot
generic.
of people said it was great.
Yes, because the Chiefs won. America loves the Chiefs.
Yeah,
Dude.
I thought it was good. It was better than last year, but it wasn't like
it
wasn't as good as like the Eagles or the last two Patriots wins.
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty good.
This is one of the last points we'll get to on this because we got to move on. But I have okay, so let's just assume this happened. 7 minutes left in the game. Jimmy Garoppolo throws it, gets a first down. Then they run it, and Mostert gets a bunch of first downs, and they close out the game, kneel the ball down, and end the Super Bowl. And Jimmy Garoppolo hoists the trophy instead of Patrick Mahomes. Say that happens. Would you say that Super Bowl was pretty boring? Take away all of the theatrics that Mahomes and the whole team.
The score is still 20-10.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a little more boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think the end of it made it a little more exciting.
Definitely.
But it was so funny. Somebody tweeted this, and I don't say this now because I'm a Patriots fan, but somebody tweeted this. They said Patrick Mahomes comes back down 10 points with 7 minutes to go, and everyone crowns him the greatest quarterback ever. And they said Tom Brady comes back down 10-0 with like 8 minutes to go against the Seattle Seahawks, and an interception happens at the end of the game for Malcolm Butler, and they say Malcolm Butler did it. And like the Chiefs also had an interception to not end the game, but
yeah, the game was already over.
The Chiefs. I actually will say this: the Chiefs' defense. We are a fantasy football podcast, so I don't spend a lot of time on defense. They were going into the game. I heard a lot of people saying they're a good defense.
They've improved.
They've improved, and I'm like, I just don't see it. They've been torched all year. They're not a bad. They were better
than last year.
Better than last year. Their secondary was better than last year, but you can still run them. Still run on them. You can still do a lot of things, and I think they made a lot of really great improvements. And in that Super Bowl, they took a step.
They did what they had to do.
Damien Williams, he had a really, really big game. And I told you, I'm gonna publicly declare this on the podcast.
Uh-oh.
If the Chiefs don't get a running back, before the game I said this, if the Chiefs don't get a running back, then I actually don't mind Damien Williams next year.
You're on the Damien Williams train.
He might become a 6th, 7th round pick, which is very worth it to me. If he's the starting running back for the Chiefs, he starts all year. I think he could have a high-end RB2 season, but because people burned him, he's going to fall back. Doesn't that seem like a
It's
perfect
funny
value
that
for you?
how last year you were on the train of not drafting him, and now you're on the train on. He doesn't blow. He's just not. I don't think he's starting running back.
I think the Chiefs are.
He's great in the open field.
Yeah. Oh, so does this change? Does this change anything in terms of this game that he had on Sunday? Does this change anything? What am I trying to ask you? Does this change anything for the Chiefs? The Chiefs. I was gonna say. I'm trying to what am I trying to ask?
If he won MVP, I know it shouldn't. This shouldn't be the reason that it changes the team's opinion. But if he won MVP, I think it would have been he just won MVP. You can't get rid of him.
Does it make it harder to draft a running back now?
Maybe a little bit, but I still think they could use a running back, and I think they know that.
Yeah.
Shady's gone. Damien Williams is Damien Williams.
Darwin
I mean, honestly,
Johnson
they really don't need a running back to become.
No.
If they didn't draft a running back and went for offensive line and defense in the draft, I think they'd be totally fine.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think they're going to draft a running back in probably the 3rd round.
I do think they will too.
And then he'll be overdrafted. I will probably overdraft him, to be honest with you. I'll jump on that hype train. But if Damien Williams is a starting running back, the value of Damien Williams for your fantasy team is actually relatively decent, and he's worth taking the risk on. Last year, people were taking him in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, and I was just no.
I think someone took him in our draft 12th overall.
So I was just very much like, no, I'm all set with that. So anyway, let's move into our consistency series. Tight ends part 1. We're going to talk about 6 tight ends. So this shouldn't take 3.5 years. It really shouldn't.
We'll see.
Our 25-minute episodes are very hard to come by, and they will get better as the season goes along. So let's start off with the number 1 tight end in fantasy. This guy, I put in his numbers. It's not unsurprising. He really probably won't until he ends up like Gronk retiring early.
He is the new Gronk fantasy-wise.
Yeah, he's the new Gronk fantasy-wise. He had 87% tight end 1 percentage, 12% tight end 2 percentage, which I would say tight end 2 or less is a bust. So, but that basically means that 12% of the time he busted, and 87% of the time he was a tight end.
Travis Kelce, week in and week out, was great. I still wouldn't have drafted him.
Nope.
In the middle of the second round.
Here's why. Here's why I personally wouldn't have drafted him. Is that you look at his fantasy point totals, you basically, a lot of people's argument is that he's a tight end, right?
Right.
I mean,
or
he's a wide
receiver.
receiver.
Yeah.
Where was he drafted last year?
Second round.
Okay, so usually you have like 7 wide receivers going off the board around that point.
Yep.
7. So he had, in half PPR, a total of 205 fantasy points. The number 7 receiver in fantasy football last year, Devontae Parker, had a total of 210 fantasy points. So
it's not as crazy as I think it was last year.
Right.
But still, you probably want to draft somebody. Like a third round for Kelce wouldn't have been awful if he like slides down a little bit. But
I've always looked at it, and I've never this year actually it didn't not line up too bad.
No.
Now that I look at it, but usually what you get out of the tight end position a lot of the time is this weird situation where people draft Kelce really high because there's not a lot of tight ends, and the lack of tight ends in the league forces you into doing this. But what you really get is like a guy who doesn't score as many fantasy points as a wide receiver 6 or 7, which is where you're drafting him. I would even beg the question, like he was mid-second round, so I would even say that he's not a top 5 wide receiver to me. And if that's what you're drafting him as,
he's not.
Then you're in trouble. I do want to mention this. There was some receiving. He had I didn't factor in the rushing statistics for tight ends for our fantasy point totals. He did have a rushing touchdown for 4 yards, which is 10 fantasy points. So that's 215, I think, fantasy points. But anyway, that's not going to happen in real life. I think that was the end around that you saw earlier this year. But anyway, one thing that I saw that was weird, and it was an interesting statistic, so I wanted to bring it up. He had only 5 touchdowns last year, 5 receiving touchdowns.
I did notice that during the season that he didn't really have a ton of touchdowns.
Which, if you do get a positive regression next year in the touchdown category, he might actually be good. But you just never know what you're going to get at the tight end position.
No, you really don't.
I don't want to take I would rather build out my wide receivers and running backs than
even the big 3 that were like safe guys.
Right.
2 of the
2
3.
of the 3 busted.
Well, 2 of the 3 worked. I think.
Yeah, they worked. You're right.
Yeah,
That's
there was one guy that busted.
They weren't top 3 though. Besides, Kelce.
Well, I beg to differ.
Yes, because I know Zach Ertz was top 5. I mean top 3.
No, I'm talking about Kittle and Kelce.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Both those
Kittle
guys.
was the top 3 tight end.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's number 2 on my list. Freaking idiot.
And he missed. I think he missed 2 games too.
Yes. So what's this? Let's freaking segue that right in. He had George Kittle had 85% of the time as a tight end 1, 12 tight end 1 finishes, 1 tight end 2 finish. I think he played in 14 games, so he busted 1.
Yeah.
Just completely didn't show up, which usually.
And that was in the beginning. That was like week 1, I think.
Yeah.
Because you were on that hype train of him being a bust.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't spectacular all year.
To start the season, he wasn't, but I think after like week 4, him and Kelce, I think, were the same.
Right. He also only caught 5 receiving touchdowns. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't throw a lot of touchdowns this year.
I actually watched pretty much every 49ers game this year because I'm a psychopath.
Me with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I know. But I had no fantasy relations at least yet.
You were like, I'm just going to watch Jimmy G.
That was literally it. Kittle,
boy.
I think, I want to say off memory that he had
Jimmy.
He had 3 receiving touchdowns called back.
Who, Kittle?
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah, because I would always get pissed
Which would've
off, and it
made-
was always Kittle.
It probably would have made him the tight end 1.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. No, I think.
it might have been 2, but I think it was 3.
I mean, in next year, I was thinking about it earlier today. I'm like, when you're ranking your tight ends, last year you had a clear 3 that you were really like, okay, these guys are the top guys. I'm not sure that there's a clear 3, but I know there's a clear 2 at this point. I would probably say Kittle is 2. Kelsey is a ridiculous receiving tight end, so I would say
Yeah,
he's 1.
Kelsey's 1, Kittle's
Yeah.
definitely 2.
So that's going to be the consensus. Some people will get a little crazy and start,
Waller might be
rising up
3.
Andrews or Waller. But we're going to have to I know that usually the top
And also,
3,
like,
4 tight ends
where is
don't-
Hooper gonna land? Where is Hunter Henry gonna land? I think that might,
right.
affect that as well.
Darren Waller comes in at number 3. He was I had him on my team all year. And I like having a tight end. I don't hate streaming the tight end position, but the way I draft requires it. I actually had Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, and Austin Hooper all on my team at one point in the first 3 weeks of the season. So I ended up deciding on Darren Waller, who I started basically every week of the season. He has 62% tight end 1 percentage, 37% tight end 2 percentage. He did not have a week where he didn't finish as a tight end 1 or tight end 2. But if you don't finish in fantasy as a tight end 1, which is top 12 in our case, you're not really producing any fantasy points. So Darren Waller had an awesome season. I like to be right about things, and I was right about Darren Waller, but it does concern me that he only had 62% of the time being a tight end 1. They didn't pass it to him in the red
Things
zone.
might change for the better or worse for Waller this offseason.
I don't like Waller next year, to be honest.
Because what are they going to do at quarterback? What are they going to do with the receivers? They're probably going to add receivers. And one of the things Waller had going for him this year was there was nobody else to throw to. He would get 10 targets every week.
Yep.
What's that going to be like if they add two guys? Like
these were his. This is pretty intriguing. These were his statistics at the wide receiver position. Wow, wide receiver position. He was only targeted 117 times, compared to Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz's 130 plus targets. He was only targeted.
Zach Ertz had 130 targets.
Yes, he did not.
And he still stunk.
Hold on a second. Back the truck up. Let me just confirm that. Yes, they're 135 targets. So Darren Waller had 117. So 16 more targets would have been the difference. But 136 targets for a guy like Travis Kelce came down with 97 catches. Darren Waller came down with 90 catches. So he was very efficient catching the ball.
Yeah.
He had 1,145 receiving yards. Travis Kelce had 1,229. So Waller was not far off from what Kelce was doing and what he actually was ahead of George Kittle in yardage. The big kicker for Darren Waller that made him not probably a top 2 or top maybe even I don't think he would have passed Kelce at all.
Yeah.
But what would have made him the number 2 tight end is if he caught
touchdowns.
He had 3 receiving touchdowns. And you know where all of the tight end touchdowns went? Freaking Foster Moreau. I was so angry all year watching this garbage because they get Darren Waller the ball all the way down the field, and then they get in the red zone, and it would just be touchdown to Foster Moreau. And I'll be like, what the hell are you doing? You have this tight end, and you're not using it. I mean, whatever works. You're trying to win football games in real life.
Right.
But, like, for me, I'm like,
Fantasy
throw it to Darren Waller.
Yeah, you're pissed off, yeah.
So
as probably most Waller owners were.
I think you're right. I think what happens this offseason has a big I don't think they move on from Derek Carr. I think they're going to – if Brady signs with them, I actually think that is a good thing for Darren Waller. But I don't think Brady's going to sign with them, A. And B, they're just going to stick with –
I don't know if they're going to
They
stick with
might
Carr.
move
I
on. I think you're –
with all the quarterbacks that are out there, I think they –
But Breeze ain't going anywhere. I don't think Brady's going anywhere. Do you think they want Phillip Rivers?
No.
So that gets rid of the old men.
They're moving to Vegas.
And you
usually
have
when a team moves,
Teddy Bridgewater.
they make a big move. They change something. They do something.
Right.
And it's Vegas. Like, I think they're going to do something.
It's Vegas.
It's Vegas. It's huge. Okay, absolutely huge. Have you seen the new stadium? Huge.
Huge.
But I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah.
I think they will keep Carr. I agree with you. But I really would not be surprised in the least if they don't.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna assume Carr stays. I don't think they add any sizable difference maker at the wide receiver position. Like Robbie Anderson will come in, but do you think that's going to affect what they do offensively?
If they sign Robbie,
Jared Cook last year, who played for the
the Saints.
No, not last year. In
2 years
2000,
ago. Played for the
in
Raiders.
2018, he played for the Raiders under John Gruden, and
Correct.
he was the number 4 tight end in fantasy. Darren Waller this year was the number 3 tight end in fantasy. As the starting tight end, they signed him, I think, to a longer-term deal after the season, I believe, or maybe it was during the season. But with Waller being the number 1 tight end there, and with them really not
Using
being
tight
able
ends.
to make – using tight ends and them not being able to really make any sizable differences at the wide receiver position, I would think that the Oakland Raiders probably –
Las Vegas.
Wow. This is going to take me all year.
I know.
It's because I have them listed as Oakland in here because they haven't officially changed. The new league year hasn't turned over.
They had a press conference about it, so I think they did.
They can't officially transition to the new name until
The new league year.
new league year. Anyway, so that's why my chart hasn't updated yet. But anyway, Darren Waller. I think for the it hurts my tongue.
Las Vegas
to say
Raiders.
Las Vegas Raiders. For the Raiders, I think they're not going to really make any sizable differences or changes, so I think Waller will probably stay the same. And my thought process stays the same with the tight end position. If you listen to this podcast before, you know that we like to look at the tight end position in terms of where is he in the read chart? Is he the number 5 guy? Is he a number 4 guy? Because if he is, even if he's the most talented tight end in the world, like that's why I was surprised with Austin Hooper, but even if he was the most talented tight end in the world, if the guy's not the, at least the 3rd option, he's not going to be very good. For Darren Waller, he's literally the number 1 option for Oakland or for the Raiders.
Right.
So it's like, if that continues to happen next year, there's no reason to believe that he's just going to blow. And if there's a positive regression in the touchdown category and he goes up, he gets like 5 or 6 touchdowns instead of 3 around the same yardage, around the same targets, like there's no reason to believe that he can't finish in the top 3 again. But fantasy football for tight ends is weird. So
it is.
The other guy that both me and Rick predicted to finish very high was Mark Andrews. He had 10 tight end 1 finishes, 2 tight end 2 finishes, so he completely busted in a few games. But he had a very, very good season.
Yep, very solid.
He did not get targeted as much as some of these guys. So Mark Andrews is going to be a guy, I think in my personal opinion, that next year is going to be a year where everyone drafts Mark Andrews.
He's going to get
real
overdrafted,
high,
absolutely. Yep.
And then he's going to crap his pants. He
I
only
think
had
he'll
98
do okay.
targets. He had only had 98 targets.
Similar how everybody expected Ertz to do good, and then he finished okay, but not where people expected him to.
Right.
It's going to be, I think, similar to Andrews. Like, he'll get drafted in, like, the 5th or 6th round, and then he'll finish as, like, the tight end, like, 7 or 8 or something. And people are going to be like, what the heck? He was a bust. But still okay, but he's going to get overdrafted.
Yeah. But for the top, I mean, the rest of the guys that we're going to talk about, they also have been pretty consistent. But to have a tight end who performs at 60% or higher, I would say, as a tight end 1 is very good. That means
good.
You're
Absolutely
finishing.
good.
That means you're finishing with 10 tight end 1 finishes, and the tight end position really isn't hurting your team all that much. Which for a lot of people can't. Somebody held on to Jared Cook all year in our fantasy league, started him every week. But how much does that hurt your team over week after week?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Jared Cook actually
wasn't bad. But
he was bad at first, but then once he got going,
right. I saw that. It was like the last 7 weeks of the season he was good. But so, I mean, I feel as though getting 60% of the time a tight end 1 performance is good, and you had a lot of tight ends do it this year. Talking about the next guy, Zachary Ertz, he had a down year.
So he's somebody like who I was kind of bringing up with Andrews for my example. He did have a down year, especially for people that drafted him in the 3rd round. But if you're just like looking at it as tight ends, he was a tight end 6, wasn't he? Or tight end 5?
Tight end 5.
So he still finished as a top 5 tight end.
Yep.
He just wasn't nearly what you expected him to be.
And when you look at a guy in the top 3, for example, in Darren Waller, he didn't hurt your team as much because he did have some high-end tight end 2 finishes, but Zach Ertz burned your team because he only finished as a tight end 1 or a tight end 2 84% of the time, which means he busted most of the time. And if we consider a freaking tight end 2 performance,
tight end 1 or 2,
a bust,
Was that 93%?
84%. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. 93%. I'm sorry. I was looking at
So
the wrong numbers.
that isn't too bad.
That's actually not bad.
Yeah.
But he was a low-end tight end, too, when he was a tight end, which is a bust.
Right. He would get
So,
like
when you
5
look at,
points.
When you look at the
It's like-
top, 6 tight ends right now and the guys we're going to talk about, it's 87, 85, 62, 66, 60. So Zach Ertz had the lowest tight end 1 percentage. He did bust. The good thing about this, so many people drafted Zach Ertz and got burned. And he might actually be. Now, there's some questions, too. Like, if the Patriots do bring back Tom Brady,
Uh-huh.
I hate talking about the Patriots in this program, but I do want to stress because this was a rumor that floated around the Twitter sphere at the trade deadline. It's the Patriots potentially going out and trying to get a tight end with Dallas Goedert, who we're going to talk about on Thursday, finishing with the amount of the finishing as well as he did last year in the absence of Zach Ertz for the time that he missed. Yeah. You could actually make the argument that they might trade Zach Ertz just to get rid of the money and create roster space.
That, yeah.
And a team that would be a fit for Zach Ertz would be New England. I say that because Tom Brady loves his tight ends, and New England built their whole offense around the tight end position for the last 10 years. Right. So I bring that up. But if he goes to a team like New England, that obviously increases his value. If he stays in Philly, it doesn't really decrease his value at all either.
No.
So I think he's actually a great value next year.
Yeah, he could be good. Yeah.
He could be good. The final guy is Austin Hoop. There it is.
Who, for halfway through the season, was the number 1 tight end in fantasy.
Yeah.
Ahead of Kelsey.
The last guy we'll talk about, by the way.
And ahead of Kittle.
He crapped his pants.
Well,
at the end of the season.
He did get hurt.
He got hurt. I understand that part.
And missed 3 weeks.
I want to give you Austin Hooper's ending numbers, though. When the weeks he did play, because you were holding on. You were like, he's been the tight end one. He's going to be really good.
Hey, he wasn't on my team.
You traded him.
He wasn't on my team.
Yeah, I know. So after he came back from his injury,
all I'm trying to say is
he was the
Do you
tight
think the
end
injury
30
had
in week 14, 15, 16, and 17. The tight end 32, the tight end 31, the tight end 11, and the tight end 12.
Do you think his injury had something to do with him
It might have.
not being as well?
He makes me so nervous, though.
Yeah.
He's gonna get drafted lower just because the injury pushed him down the board.
What team is he going to be on?
He's going to be on the Falcons.
You think so?
Yeah, I cut that news out of this thing. It seems like he's going to be on the Falcons. So I would be surprised if he isn't. But I get your point. If he does change teams, what team does he go to? Assuming he stays with the Falcons, I don't like him that much next year because if he gets drafted later, I'll take the risk.
Right.
But if he's like a 5th, 6th round pick, I just stay very far away. The only reason why I say that is A, he did get injured this year, and B, they still have Julio Jones, they have Calvin Ridley, and they have Devonta Freeman still. So it's like there's other options in the passing game. Like I was trying to figure out why they were passing it to Austin Hooper as much as they were.
He red zone target, pretty much.
He's a red zone target.
Well, actually, and Matt Ryan
Julio's never been a red zone target.
Matt Ryan trusts Hooper as well in third down situations.
Right.
So he'll still get his looks.
Yeah.
The problem is he going to get because he got a touchdown every those first 8-9 weeks of the season. He would consistently either get a touchdown every week,
right,
or he'd get 8 catches for 100 yards. One of those two. And I wouldn't rely on that for a second straight season with, like you said, all the weapons on that team. But if he falls down the draft and he's again just like he was last year, a tight end that's going late, then absolutely,
it's definitely worth it.
Draft Hooper. But
I just wanted to point out too, he had 97 targets in 13 games. So you know what I mean. You break down. I just want to do the average.
He was on pace with Kelsey and Kittle.
97 divided by 13 is an average of 7 a game. So if you add or you multiply 7 times 3 is 21. So that would have equaled out to around in between what Waller got and what Kittle and Kelsey, or Kittle only had 107 targets, but what Kelsey and
Waller
Zach Ertz got.
Zach Ertz. Yeah.
So if he did that, if he does that next year, obviously that's exciting. The hardest part is that this year was a weird year. It was a weird year because the tight end position did have a lot of depth, which it doesn't normally have. Like
Right.
Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, and Andrews were all guys that you were comfortable with starting every single week.
And there's even guys.
Ertz and Hooper were both guys you were comfortable with starting every week, but they got hurt, so you had to figure some things out. Even Hunter Henry, you were kind of comfortable with starting on a week-to-week
Evan Ingram
basis.
when he played.
Evan Ingram when he played. We're not even going to talk about him because he didn't.
He only played in like
He
6
only
games.
played in like 6 games. So it's just there was so much depth at the tight end position. Do you expect guys like Austin Hooper to continue playing well? Is this a like public shift in the NFL to start throwing to the tight end position?
I hope so. Then it would be useful fantasy wise.
You look at like what? Okay, you look at what the best teams in the league, and this is the last point we'll make for the show. But you look at the teams who are shifting to this new trend.
Two best teams in the league have the
this
two
new
best tight ends.
This new. Well, yeah, you're right. Two best teams in the league have the two best tight ends. But you also see this. You also see this situation now with Patrick Mahomes, who's systematically changed the entire quarterback position.
Yep.
Right? And you're seeing teams draft very athletic quarterbacks. But what are these two teams now that have these very athletic quarterbacks running all over the field, making ridiculous passes, being efficient in the passing game, but also in the running game? Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
You also, on the other side, like Jimmy Garoppolo's a pocket passer, but in that Super Bowl, you had George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league, on the other team. So it's like, do other NFL teams look at that and go, well, maybe the tight end position is valuable, like the Patriots built it up 10 years ago. Like maybe we should run our offense like that. If that's the case,
I hope so.
the tight end position will get more stable.
Yeah.
And like we won't be sitting here going, which guy is going to be good? And then you only have one tight end who's good every year. But because then you also got guys that we'll talk about next week too, is T.J. Hawkinson, Noah Fant, young guys that are coming
those
up.
guys, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and even Mike Gesicki, who we'll talk about on Thursday. Like some of these guys are young, they're good, and they could actually take that big step forward. But are we entering this new league with tight ends that could be really good?
I
certainly
hope
hope
so. Yeah.
Meanwhile, somebody in our league keeps proposing getting rid of the tight end position altogether and making a third wide receiver.
I was thinking about that. That person, I don't think has had a good tight end
ever.
Yeah.
They draft one and it just completely busts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A vendetta against tight ends.
Yeah, a vendetta against tight ends. But that'll do it for this episode of the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Don't forget to check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and talk to you on Thursday, Fantasy Champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at TheFFChamps.